Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Conway, and today it is time to learn about writing equations from a point and a slope. So far, you've learned how to write equations from a graph. So we're going to extend that just a little further or get less concrete and figure out how to do it if they give us a point and a slope. So hopefully you realize if I give you a point and I tell you the slope of the line, you should be able to write the equation of the line. So let's start just by exploring that. So if I say write the equation of a line that goes through the point -6, 6 and has a slope of 1/3, hopefully you would be able to make that line on a graph if you needed to. So like you could plot -6, 6, and if you know the slope is 1/3, you know that line's going to go up 1 and over 3, and it's just going to keep going up 1 and over 3. So you'd have a line that looked kind of like that. And then once you have the graph of that line, you might be able to look and see, oh, it crosses the y-axis at 8. So I could write the equation of my line. We know it already has a slope of 1/3, so we know it's going to be y equals 1/3 x, and now we can see that it crosses at 8. That's not always going to work so well, because if you have really big numbers or fractions, you're not going to be able to just see your y-intercept like that. So another thing you might do is you might remember, okay, I know how to make tables. So if I put -6 as my input and 6 as my output, I know that I'm going to have my process is starting with y equals 1/3 x. What we don't know is what you have to add to get the other part. So another thing you could look at is a table, and you could say, well, for one, you could look at the rise and the run. You could say, oh, it goes up 1, that would be 7, for every, and then over 3, so that would become -3, and then you could keep following that 8 and 0, and that would be your y-intercept right there. Or you could look at this table and you could just look and you could see, okay, I know I'm going to have to do 1/3 of -6, and then I'm going to add something to that, and I don't know what it is. Well, 1/3 of -6, if you put that in your calculator, is going to give you -2. Well, what do I have to add to -2 to get 6? Well, -2 plus 8 is 6. So that's one way to think of it, just backwards thinking. Okay, I know my slope is 1/3. I know my equation is going to start with 1/3 x. What do I have to add to make it work? So if I put -6 in, I get 6 out. And then you could just kind of check it with some other points you know. -3, if I put that in, 1/3 times -3 is going to be -1, plus 8 would be 7. And then for 0, if I put 0 in, 1/3 times 0 is 8. So the equation of this line would still be 1/3 x plus 8, which we saw with the graph, but you could check it with the table. Now for some of you that might feel kind of messy, or maybe the tables aren't what you're used to seeing. So I've also got a list of steps that you can follow, and this is probably the way you're going to end up doing it. I wanted you to see in a graph and in a table kind of where these steps are coming from. And it is kind of important that you're familiar with this process, because your other teachers are going to expect that you've seen this before. So here are the steps for writing the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. So I go ahead and hit pause right now and copy those steps down into your math notebook somewhere. So the best part of videos is I don't have to stop teaching and wait for you to write. You can just hit pause. And then once you're done doing that, hit play, and we'll work an example through using those steps. In fact, we will work the exact example that we've already been working with through, so you can see how it works with this. Okay, so hopefully you've got your steps copied down. So in the example I did up above, the slope was 1/3. And our point that we were given was -6, 6. By the way, always check to see if your point is the y-intercept, because if your point is the y-intercept, you're done. You can just write the equation of your line. You know, if the point starts with 0, it already is the y-intercept. Okay, So it says identify the m, x, and y values from the given information. So right here, m is 1/3. That's our slope. We already know that. Our x values, which they're doing in blue, is going to be -6. It's the one on the first number in the point. Our y value is going to be +6. It's the second number in the point. So once you've got those, now it says substitute the values for m, x, and y into y equals mx plus b. Hopefully you've got y equals mx plus b memorized. So right here, since we know an x and we know a y, we're going to plug them in for x and y. So we're going to start with y, which is 6, equals m, which is 1/3. And then whenever we replace a number with a letter, I hope you remember, you always put parentheses around it. So right here, we're going to put -6 for x, and we're going to put parentheses around it because it's going in for a letter, for a variable. And then plus, and then this is the part we don't know. So we're going to use b for our y-intercept because we don't know what our y-intercept is yet. I mean, I know we know this one, but we're pretending we don't know it yet. So because in the problems you're doing, you're not going to know it. So now it says solve the equation for b. So you have to think back to first trimester, which I know was a long time ago for some of you guys, and solve this equation. So the first thing you're going to need to do to solve it is you're going to have to multiply these two numbers, which if you think about what we were doing with the tables, it's kind of the same idea. Okay, 1/3 times -6, you might need a calculator, is -2. But again, if you've forgotten how to multiply fractions, I'm doing 1 times -6 is -6 divided by 3. Fractions are just division. You multiply the top. And so that's -2 plus b. And so some of you can probably already see, what does b have to be to make this work? If you don't, just remember the next step. This is basically just a one-step equation. We're going to add 2 to both sides of the equation. So 8 equals b, or b is 8. So now that I know what b is, and I know m already, it was given to me, I can now go in and I can write my equation in slope-intercept form, just replacing m and b. So my final answers for these should always start with y equals, and then I'm going to leave x and y as variables. So it's going to be y equals 1/3 x plus, and do pay attention here, I got a +8. So it's 1/3 x plus 8. If it was -8, I would put 1/3 x minus 8. And that is my final answer. So there's kind of 3 different ways to do this. I'm going to recommend you don't try to graph them all. It's not always going to work. There's going to be times when it just won't fit. So I either want you doing it this way using these steps, or you can put it in the table and work it out from there. It's essentially the same thing. You're replacing x with the number that is the x in the coordinate, and then you're seeing what you have to make b be to get the y coordinate. So the next step is to practice these a few more times and then do your Delta Math assignment. So down below here I have a worksheet, and what I would really like for you to do is to do this worksheet on your own and then check your answers after you're done. But if you're still not feeling very confident, go ahead and just work with me to do these problems. So I'm going to start with, so if you're like, I think I get this, hit pause, do this worksheet, then just come back and check your answers. If you're still not feeling very confident, maybe do numbers 1 and 2 with me and then finish the rest of the worksheet on your own. Either way, I'm going to go ahead and do all of these problems in this video so that you can check your answers when you're done. So for number 1, we have -4, 7 as our point, and our slope is 1/2. So x is -4, y is 7, and m is 1/2. So I'm going to start by replacing the numbers I know in y equals mx plus b. So I know that y is 7. I know that my slope is 1/2, and I know that x is -4. I need to know b. So now I just have this equation. I need to figure out what b has to be. If 7 should be 1/2 of -4 is -2 plus b. Add 2 to both sides. 5 equals b. So if b is 5, now this is the hard part. We're not done just because we solved the equation. Now we got to plug that back in. Our final answer is y equals, slope is 1/2 x plus 5. That's my final answer. Okay, number 2 is 0, 4, and m is 3. So x is 0, y is 4, m is 3. Now, if you're clever here, you're noticing x is 0, then that's my y-intercept. You can still follow the process, though. So you might see, oh, basically I have my answer. Or maybe you're like, what are you talking about? So let's see what happens. So I'm going to plug it in. I have 4 equals 3 times 0 plus b. Well, 3 times 0 is 0, so 4 equals 0 plus b, which means b is just 4. So they gave me the y-intercept here. So now I just need to go back and write it in. Y equals 3x plus 4. All right, maybe you're feeling just a little bit more confident now and you're ready to try these next two on your own. If you're not, follow along. If you are, hit pause, try them, and then see what I get. Okay, x is 2, y is 6, m is 0. So I'm going to have 6 equals 0 times 2 plus b. Well, if my slope is 0, that means that that's just 0, so 6 equals b, so b is 6. Well, if my slope is 0, I don't know if you guys remember this, but a slope of 0 looks like this, right? That is a horizontal line. That means it's just y equals whatever y is, which is 6. Now you might start by writing y equals 0x plus 6 and then realize that the x just kind of goes away. But your final answer should be y equals 6. So if you wrote y equals 0x plus 6 when you did this on your own, just add a step and write y equals 6 as your final answer. On a test, I wouldn't take away points for 0x plus 6, but on a state test, they might not, or they might not have that as an option. You have to see that it's 6. All right, number 4. X is 8, y is 2, m is -3/4. So I'm going to do 2 equals -3 over 4 times 8 equals -3 times 8 is -24 divided by 4 is -6. Or I could have done 8 divided 4, which is 2, times -3, which is -6. Or I can get out my calculator and type it in my calculator. -3 over 4 times 8 is -6. So lots of different ways to do that. If you're not very good at doing fractions in your head, invest in a calculator that does them well. It'll save you a lot of grief. And the reality of the situation is you're pretty much always going to have access to a calculator. So if you can make a calculator work for you, you'll be okay. All right, so now I need to add 6 to both sides of the equation, or just see what my answer is going to be. 8 equals b. So y equals -3 over 4x plus 8. Okay, 2 more. Again, at any point, if you're like, I get this, hit pause, try them on your own, and then just check your answers when you're done. X equals 1, y equals -10. So we have -10 equals 2 times 1. -10 equals 2 plus b. Subtract 2 on both sides. 12. Y equals 2x. And then this is, we haven't actually had one of these yet. B is negative. No, it's not. B is positive. I was plus 12. If it was negative, we'd want to put subtract, but it wasn't. Okay, last one. And there's a reason I'm doing this example. Our slope is undefined. X is still -3 and y is 5. Remember, undefined slope is a vertical line, which means it's not actually a function. which means we can't use traditional methods to create this equation. You just have to remember, when I have a vertical line, that means it's crossing the x-axis. So my equation starts with x equals, and then you just look at your point. What is the x value? -3. So it is going to be a vertical line that goes through -3. All right, hopefully you get this enough now that you can go and do the Delta math assignment. The first couple of questions are just questions about the notes. So pay attention, look at the picture, make sure that you're reading it carefully, and do the Delta math assignment. And if you have any questions, make sure you check into office hours 11:45 to 12:45 every single day. All right, good luck.